What the heck is a quad lock?
Watch this to find out.
Whether you're in the car, on the bike, on the water, in the air, your phone is an important tool. Keep it secure with Quad Lock.
IndyCar should revise the rules with this blue flag. We should not be looking at two back markers leading the race. At that point, if you're a lap down, you'd unfortunately get the fuck out of the way.
Did you watch the Wiener race?
No, I didn't watch the Wiener race.
See the Wiener Miners race the day before?
Maybe that's. I did see someone in our comments here said maybe that's what they should do at Monaco.
Drivers weren't getting out of the car,
Yep.
physically rooted and emotionally drained because they didn't win.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, we're fucking driving around all day. I could have had a cup of tea and this is boring, this is shit, and we should throw bananas at them.
Some of the crew got 3 hours sleep. I think some got no sleep. Started 40th, won the race. I mean, it was like a fairy tale. It really was.
That's the fairy tale weekend. You shunt a car, things rooted, boys
Yeah.
spend all weekend building it and then you go win.
Oh no! He's in defence! They're both in defence! They're all in defence! Oh, unbelievable!
Sound check.
Sound check. Oh, that was crisp.
That was a fast one too. That was nice. Well, there we go. We are
Someone said fake already.
live and rolling for episode 54 of the Apex Hunters United podcast. If you're new here, we're live streaming this, so we'll just give a quick intro. I'm Scotty Pye, Elliot Barber. We are the hosts of Apex Hunters United. We've survived longer than we expected when we started this podcast, but we're live streaming on YouTube tonight. So if you are new to the show and you'd like to, hit subscribe, give us a like button maybe, tell your friends about us. But yeah, tonight we're debriefing 3 massive events. It's kind of like the Triple Crown. We're doing Indy 500.
Yeah.
Huge race, Coke 600,
Yep, NASCAR,
and Monaco.
Monaco Formula One Grand Prix. Yeah, it was a Triple Crown for the weekend. Not the official Triple Crown, but big, bloody this overseas stuff. It's hard to catch up on a Monday, isn't it, when you got 3 of the biggest races that you're trying to catch up on. And,
Yeah, I didn't-
And fit in a full day of working. It keeps you on your toes.
Fair to say, I mean, I'm probably a little bit luckier than you because a lot of this is what I do. So I had the time to go through it, but I've tried to make as many notes as possible as well and chat to you throughout the day to make sure that you got all the info you need. But it was massive, and they weren't just short races. Like,
Oh.
you know, Monaco was like fucking pulling teeth. That was a tough one to get through last night, but it was the shortest of all the races, thankfully, in terms of time. But the Coke 600, that's massive. I think 400 miles is the race.
Yeah,
It's their biggest
400
race of the year.
laps, I think, wasn't it? It's
It's 400 laps, 600 miles.
400 laps,
I mean,
yeah.
makes sense, the Coke 600. But yeah, 400 laps. So it's their biggest race of the year. The Indy 500, it was a pretty fast race, actually. There weren't a lot of cautions, especially in the last 100. But they were good races. And to be honest, my favourite of the 3 was actually the NASCAR, which for me is a first. I've never...
Starting to convert you.
I honestly loved the NASCAR race. That was my favourite of all 3. But the GP was a disaster. But before we get into the race, we'll go across qualifying just quickly because that's really where the excitement starts and finishes with the Monaco Grand Prix. And if you are new, I'm a big F1 fan. That's probably why I'm so frustrated because F1 is my number one. But it was not. I don't know. Monaco, I think it's like New Year's. You know, you have high expectations, and I don't know that I've ever had a New Year's party that's lived up to my expectations. That's Monaco for me every year.
That's anything that you pump up. In, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always a letdown.
Yeah, and then NASCAR was, it was the one I had least expectations on. I thought, I watched the NASCAR. And,
Have you ever been to the race at Monaco, like as a spectator?
No, I'd love to. Probably can't even afford to go spectate there, to be fair.
It looks, I had some friends over there on like a car tour.
Yeah.
And they were in a pretty sweet spot, and it does look bloody expensive, but it looks really cool.
It looks like to do it properly is expensive. I'm sure you can go and try but you want to go to those events and experience it.
You'd save your pennies and do it properly. Feel like a baller.
Exactly. But it's still Monaco. But the Formula One qualifying was interesting. And one of the standouts for me all season has been Isaac Hadjar. He qualified 6th, which was P5 in the end because Hamilton got a 3-place grid penalty. But he was only 0.2 off of Verstappen, which is pretty unreal. So it was 4th and 5th for Verstappen, 4th, Hadjar in 5th. And Lawson was actually, he did a good job to make Q3. I think he ended up in P9.
It also lends itself to how we said, I wonder if Max was in a Racing Bull. Is a Racing Bull a better car?
Well, I actually made that note because, not that note specifically, but Yuki struggled relatively again.
Yeah.
But when he was in the Racing Bulls, I would say he was more competitive and not that dissimilar to Hadjar.
Yeah.
I would have thought, I think honestly, if you put him back in a Racing Bulls, he would be doing better. But the crazy thing is, Hadjar now has more points than Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson combined.
Yeah, I
He's
saw
got
it.
15 points there on 14 if you combine their points, with 10 being with Yuki. So that's pretty bad. And then Alonso. I mean, Alonso really was a standout. And I think in Q2, heard him come on the radio and he was pumped. And I think it's cool to see him find a bit of mojo, because it's been a pretty bad year. I think the last Grand Prix he was in, he actually said that he has the worst luck in Formula One.
Yeah.
Which he said after the Grand Prix, because he did have a failure, that it wasn't luck, it was just a mechanical. He doesn't put that down to luck. I think the safety cars, where they come and fall, is what he was talking about there, where, that is just pot luck. When you have a failure, unfortunately, that's just part of motorsport.
It's when you shit out of luck.
Yeah, exactly. But it was cool. So he made Q3. I think he qualified. He actually qualified in 7th.
Yep.
So he's right behind Isaac. And when you think about it, he did a great job. But to put it in perspective, Lance Stroll was 19th. So
He's picking that thing up and carrying it along.
he is. And they've been close relatively all year, which it doesn't seem like that because Stroll gets a lot of shit. But they have actually been relatively close. So this was a weekend that Alonso really just pumped him. Norris qualifying was a freak. I think I don't know whether Ferrari improved their cars for this weekend or not, but they were talking about how they were going to struggle in the low speed. They did turn it around, very much so, particularly on Leclerc's car, and he qualified second, but he actually snatched pole for a moment, and then Norris got it back again. And it looked like as well that Oscar was, for the first time, potentially overdriving the car in the search of lap time. Never made any big mistakes or anything. He just looked like he was having to try harder to get a lap time. And I guess Monaco as well brings that out in you. Like if you are overdriving, the rear steps out, you start to tap the wall. And
Saw that in the race too with Oscar.
yep.
He got a little bit wild at a few stages.
Yeah, yep. So it was actually good to see, though. Having to push the way he did showed that this isn't, both those guys they're not easy in qualifying. The Ferrari pushed them. Look, we know that Oscar and Norris are very close. It was good to see Norris bounce back, but I think the fact that Leclerc was in there was what made Oscar have to push so hard, because it wasn't now going to be a 1-2. It was going to be first or third potentially with the way Leclerc was going. So I just think it got Oscar to try and lift to another level. But Leclerc at Monaco seems to be on that level anyway, and can get a car. It's probably not as good as the McLaren at the front.
Yeah, I love the slow-mos from Monaco too when they're like a mil off the Armco.
Yeah,
And you could see Oscar a couple of times was like there was no room for error. The top three were they were comfortable enough to put it, the width of a cigarette paper off the Armco. And I know Max was obviously still wheeling the thing, but he was just a little bit more margin, which to me says he's probably not that confident in what he's got under him. Because normally you'd see him when the thing's on rail in previous years, he's right on the Armco and stuff like that. So, yeah, I always enjoy watching that side of it from Monaco, seeing who's confident with their car
yeah.
and who's sort of just leaving an inch in up their sleeve in case the thing does something it does not used to.
Yeah.
But a couple of shunts.
There was. I mean, that's what I love about Leclerc at Monaco. Like when you say it's cool to see the drivers really hanging on the line, he actually said in an interview, he really enjoys Monaco in that regard, that you try things not knowing if it will stick. And if you cross the line and complete the lap, great. But if you don't, that's Monaco. He sort of said, I'm prepared to crash to go fast here. And that's Q3. So I think that's why he's able to
Lift.
He is prepared to crash. I mean, looking at Oscar, it looked like he was prepared to crash.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't look like he was holding anything back. But you're right about Max. It felt like this year or this time at Monaco, it didn't look like he believed he could rag a lap out of it and put it on the pole like he has in the past. Like I think last year or the year before, when he gained 2/10 in the last sector, it was something ridiculous. But he was 6/10 off pole in the end. And I think for Max, he would know that and be like, well, I'll just put my lap together.
Yeah.
This is what I've got.
Yep.
And then,
You definitely know if you got a car that will maybe pull a miracle out and stick or not.
yep.
So I think Max is obviously mature enough now to go, well, yeah, there's no point doing a tub.
Yeah. And he was never going to, I mean, that gap was so big. But I was surprised because in Friday practice, it looked like he had, final practice, it looked like he had found the pace, but it didn't come to fruition in qualifying. Because even before qualifying, Oscar actually said somehow Max has turned up again and he's a threat for qualifying. And it just wasn't quite the case. But it is interesting would Max be faster in a Racing Bulls? I still think that's an interesting question because the fact that I think Yuki was more competitive in them.
Yeah.
And now we see Isaac to be within 2/10.
Well, Liam's the same. Liam's been more competitive going back into the Racing Bull than he was at Red Bull. The only person left to tell us to really, solidify this question is if Max jumped in one.
I know.
Because everyone else has gone quicker in the Racing Bull than they have at Red Bull.
Yeah, yep. Ocon, good to see him bounce back. He qualified in 8th, which was I felt like he's been a little bit on the back foot compared to Ollie Behrman.
Yep.
Behrman qualified in 17th. So, he really, he pumped him there. But Ocon has been in Q3 a lot of times. I think last year he qualified 3rd at Monaco. So he is a bit of a maestro there. And it's one of those places, I think a driver can make the difference. But at the end of the day, at that level, I still think if the car's not good, they'll be nowhere. But Ocon is a guy that seems to be able to get something out of nothing around that track. George Russell, gutted for him because his thing broke down in qualifying and he came out and said he really did feel like they had found something and he would have been in Q3 and I think he probably would have been ahead of Max considering how far Max was off.
Yeah, and I think, did he end up keeping the fastest lap of the race once he got past all the traffic in the race?
No, last lap of the race.
I got pipped at it.
Lando took it.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Lando was 3.5 seconds faster than Leclerc on the last lap. And he said he only pushed for 1 lap for the day, and that was it.
Yeah, that was it. Wow.
He got the fast lap of the race and was 3 seconds quicker, or over 3 seconds quicker than P2.
Okay.
So it's pretty wild. Kimi Antonelli's an interesting one, he has had a pole, and he's been doing great in the races, but I do feel like there's a little bit of pressure on closing the gap in qualifying to Russell, because more often than not, I know Miami was great. I thought it might be a turning point, but Imola, he had a tough event again. And then to go to Monaco, he didn't seem competitive, especially relative to George all weekend. And then, to make that mistake through the chicane and clip the inside barrier, it's clearly overdriving and he made a little mistake. But I do feel like the gap between George and Kimi quite often is a fair bit in qualifying. It's a few tenths usually, and then which is a lot. In most other teams, I know there seems to be sometimes a lot of hype surrounding someone when they join the championship. Kimi has a lot of hype surrounding him, but at some point I reckon that gap probably needs to close. And I think if he had qualified without the crash, there would have been a pretty big gap between George and Kimi at Monaco. I actually would have liked to have seen what that was going to be.
Yeah, I'm with you. I tend to think George would have been in the top 4, I would imagine, in qual, if all things given. Yeah,
I think he would have split that gap between Oscar and Max, maybe. Yeah, and then would have been on for the podium. One thing I, as an Aussie, like to see is, but it's also not fair because it's clearly the car. But I love to see that Franco Colapinto hasn't turned up and brained Jack Doohan. It's proving that it probably is Alpine and it may not be the organic spacer, as you like to put it.
Shitbox under him.
So Colapinto qualified dead last. And he was almost 6/10 off Pierre Gasly again. Gasly was only 18th, so it wasn't like
they were
a superstar, right up the front. But the gap is huge. To be 20th, 1 spot behind your teammate or 2 spots behind your teammate and be 6/10 off is big. He was more competitive in the race, but that was qualifying. Well, I hope everyone's enjoying the show. We want to give a quick shout out to our partners that make this possible. Start with East Coast Car Rentals. If you're in the market for a rental car, AHU15 for 15% off already fantastically priced hire cars. Trico wiper blades. Barbs, if you're in the market for wiper blades, what are you going to buy?
Tricos.
Absolutely. And if you don't want to rent a car, you want to buy one, Lancaster Motor Group.
That's right. And if you go in and you mention Apex Hunters, you get a free wheel alignment. When's that till, Scotty?
End of June, I believe it is this year. So if you get in and mention Apex Hunters, you don't mention our name specifically because
I won't know who you're talking about. But if you are one to hit the gutters, or your missus likes to hit the gutters in your car, mine is guilty of that too. Take it in, they'll give you a free wheel alignment, job done.
All the links to these websites will be in the description of this video. Quadlock, the link there if you're after any phone mounts, adapters, or a cover. You need a case for your phone. Action cam mounts as well. We smashed those. That we use them flat out at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. Any of the vision
they're
that was
awesome
captured there was
so quick to just change them.
Well, that was the thing that I didn't realise. Yeah, you don't need to undo your GoPro mount anymore. They've got their own connector, so that's very fast. But if you can, support the partners that keep us alive. If you'd love to watch our podcast live, like some of our Patreon members, go over there and sub. Back to the show. Before we give our thoughts, I made a little clip of the drivers giving us their thoughts on the Grand Prix. Not all of the drivers, just selected a few. Because I thought it was was a disappointing Grand Prix. But here's a little clip that I made, and we can hear from the drivers first.
You can't race here anyway, so it doesn't matter what you do. 1 stop, 10 stops. I think nowadays with an F1 car, you can just pass a Formula 2 car around here.
And what could work, do you think? Perhaps bring them in within a certain window?
I don't know. Yeah, but then honestly, we are almost doing Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Then we have to install bits on the car. Maybe, you can throw bananas around. Yeah, I don't know.
I'll do it.
Slippery surface.
Sure.
No, it's miserable. The races here are generally, unless you're first and in the lead, even when you're in the lead, it's not that fun. So
It's not really how we want to go racing. I don't like going racing like that. I think in the end it's a tactical game, and we had to make it work. The RB started it, and we knew if they started it, we've got to match it, and it just makes this messy race. So could have brought a pillow in the car and a coffee and just chilled out for a little bit. But in a weird way, it's even actually quite hard to keep your focus when you're driving around that slowly.
And obviously at one point I just said screw it. I want to enjoy Monaco. I didn't get the chance in quali yesterday. I got 25 laps driving, qualifying laps every lap. I enjoyed that at least. And ironically, I finished in a higher position by taking the drive-through penalty than I would have if I didn't. So unfortunately, the system's flawed.
An incredible race. We won Monaco, which has been a dream of mine since I was a kid. It's one race that everyone wants to win.
There we go. I thought that was funny to throw in Lando at the end, because there's the contrast. There's one person that enjoyed the race, and that's usually the case at Monaco.
Usually the one that wins it. I mean, that's no different to most races, but especially more so there where, like you heard Alex say, he could take a pill and have a cup of coffee, and it's actually hard because it's you're driving that slow to stay focused. They make it sound so easy.
Well, I think at one point they were driving 5 seconds per lap slower than they could. I mean, at one point the target lap time for Carlos Sainz was a 1 minute 19. Fast lap of the race was a 13 or something.
Yeah,
it would be difficult to drive that slow.
Driving 5 seconds off is actually hard.
Yeah.
Because you do start to brain fade and just not think and be like, I'm going that slow, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I could see, like, during the race, George Russell actually said that Albon was driving dangerously at points, and it would be like that because when you're making an effort to drive that slow, it's unpredictable to other people because they don't know where you're going to give up the time.
Yeah, coming out of the tunnel and into the chicane there, that was where the big talking point where he's like, he's braking that early. I can't judge for it. So pretty funny little press conference at the end there, though.
I thought, and Max's points, he's just funny. I love Max when he's pissed off. Like, he just says it as it is. I think Albon probably panicked a little bit when he was just shit-canning the race and tried to make it,
keep his job a bit.
Make it lighthearted. And George is probably at a point in his career where he can do things like what he did. He's established himself as the leader of that team. I think his contract sounds like it's pretty certain it's going to be renewed. But he got sick of sitting behind Albon. And for those that maybe didn't follow the race closely or don't know what happened, Formula One introduced a mandatory two-stop strategy this weekend.
Yep.
But there was no minimum lap. You had to take the first stop or the second stop. It was just across the 78 laps, I think it is. You had to do 2 stops minimum. They tried to, mix up the race because last year there was a red flag on the first lap. Everyone changed their tyres last year and then never pitted again. So there was no overtaking. This was a bit of a Hail Mary, I guess, to try and spice up the racing. But what it meant was, and I didn't foresee this coming. I didn't think teams would do what they did, but they actually sacrificed their second car for a portion of the race to back the train up, give their teammate a free pit stop. So they literally gave up. It was 20 seconds for a pit stop. They would back off until the teammate got 20 seconds, let them come out in front again, and do it again. So there was teams that gave up over 40 seconds so that their teammate could get 2 free pit stops. And then what they did in the case of Williams, which I thought that this one was like real cheeky. And even James Vowles, I think morally felt bad for doing it for the fans and also the other competitors. He said is not how we like to go racing. But they actually switched their 2 drivers in. So Sainz gave up over 40 seconds to let Albon do his 2 stops. And then Albon went behind Sainz and repaid the favour. And that's where George Russell was like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, he hadn't even pitted. He had already been lapped twice and he still had 2 stops to do.
Yeah.
So he passed him, blazed, took a drive through, still come out in front of Albon. That's how slow he was going, and then got his 2 stops done. Finished behind both Williams, which is where he was. But it actually worked out that he did finish off better, breaking the rule. That was the biggest penalty they could give him, and he went, "Fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm sick of this." So it was a disaster. Like, as a fan, it was not good. I don't know what you do. I don't know how you fix it. If you guys in the comments have any ideas,
well, the problem is
pop
too,
them in.
it's so tight now, and the F1 cars are so big now too. So they're not like, you look at an F1 car from 20 years ago versus one now. So like, they are completely on a completely different scale to the size of them. So, and you didn't used to be able to pass back then.
Yeah.
So how are you going to pass an even a bigger car?
I think it was 1992 when Mansell was chasing down Senna. He was 3 seconds a lap faster at one point, and Senna still held him off. I think it was 92. Someone in the comments will let me know if I'm right or wrong. But, and that's back then. So Monaco's always been that track. It's been hard to pass. But it is at the point. They're not even blocking. The cars are that big. They're just cruising around. And to be able to drive 5 seconds a lap slower and not have to even block is just, it's out of control.
It's like they need to do like a Formula E style, like a joker section that you have to take every now and again. Like they can somehow extend one of the, or you have to cut a chicane or something to try and just try and get some opportunity to actually get in front of people if they're holding you up or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of gimme. But I think I do think that Martin Brundle raised a point that maybe they have to bring in a rule that you've got to serve your first pit stop within the first half of the race or a part of the race, so that it does force people to not go to the end. But I don't know. I don't think you can ever fix it. I think that at some point you got to just...
It is what it is.
Either accept that's what it is and keep doing it, or... I mean, Formula One don't do this, but it's that type of track now, like what NASCAR do, that they would make an exhibition match and do, what was the
competition caution?
No, but what they've done a couple now that are non-points races.
Clash sort of
a
thing.
Clash. They do an all-stars race. It's not for points because it has got to the point where they've outgrown that track. The racing is, as a fan, it's a fucking waste of time. And I'm a diehard fan of Formula One. I think the worst race last night was the worst race probably I've ever seen there, even though last year there was no overtaking. This year the topic was all about the stops more than the racing, and then watching guys drive 5 seconds a lap slower. And then to hear the drivers say as well, like it's actually quite hard to stay awake or focused at that speed is... So why the fuck are we going there?
Well, you're then watching it going, oh, well, they're not wringing its neck.
Yeah.
Or a portion of the field are not wringing its neck that is surviving.
So it's literally qualify and go home is all they really should do, because qualifying is interesting. I like that. It was exciting.
Yeah.
But that was Formula One, mate. So the results now, I guess we to wrap that up. First place was obviously Lando Norris in the end, and they did the top three. They drove fast, like they lapped up to 9th twice.
Yeah, they were pushing, yeah.
And so they were pushing. That was the one thing it did do. It did make the front three go fast. They finished well ahead of Max, but Max had a massive gap to Lewis. So it was Lando, Charles Leclerc second, Oscar third. Then Max pitted on the last lap of the race, I think it was, from the lead and dropped back to fourth. But Lewis was 48 seconds off the lead of the race by the end in fifth. So it's just, it was a disappointing race. Isaac Hadjar and Racing Bulls, I think credit to those guys. They did a really good job with their strategy. They were the first really that went, they were onto it straight away. As soon as the race started, Liam was a roadblock and they got their stops done. By halfway, they'd got both their stops done for Isaac Hadjar without losing a place. So it was, I think they did a really good job. They were on it early and they both scored points in the end. So that was good for Liam. He's had a shit start of the year. So
6th and 9th, wasn't it? Yeah.
8th.
8th, there you go. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I knew it was something like that.
So yeah, I think, that was good. But yeah, I do think the question is now, does Monaco stay on the calendar? Let us know your thoughts. Is there a fix for it? I don't think there is. I don't know how you could.
Well, it'd also be the from F1's point of view, like, is it a big money race for them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a destination that, like, how many Aussies flew over just to go and do that? So, do they give a shit about the race? I don't know. Like, is it the one that's so lucrative to them that they don't care? It's a snoozer. I don't know.
I think that's a good point.
It is the glitz, like F1's glitz and glamour. To me, that's all it looked like was guys with fake Rolexes walking around in yachts and stuff. So
But then is that part of the championship or should it just be an exhibition? This is where I think NASCAR actually do a good job because they do some gimmicks and and I don't love all of them, but I do like that, there's the Bowman Park, they used to race there. Bowman Gray, sorry. They used to race there. They outgrew it. So now they go back there for an exhibition race because there's still fans that love that place. So that's what I think Monaco, and I think that's what it is now. And it's really, I've thought about it all day because I
almost reckon it'd be better if the teams that you're currently running with, which some of them wouldn't have, but you get the current day stars driving the historic F1s for that race. That would be cool.
My God, that would be wild.
Because they do a historic Monaco as it is.
Yeah.
But like if the current guys actually drove, a certain era's cars and they actually raced them, that would be...
I mean, that would be cool. You still have to do the Formula One race, obviously. I think it just has to maybe be non-points because you've got, like you say, the Rolex wearing, that is the event. That's
it's Formula One.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Grand Prix has a place, but I do think it's you can't be having a championship race that's based on qualifying, really. And that is always what it is.
Yeah.
And we learned that this year, that even with 2 stops, it didn't change the outcome of the race.
And that's why Georgia felt hard done by because if you have a mechanical failure in qual or something,
it's over.
You lose so many points, and and to your point, you can't do anything about it. Doesn't matter who you are, you're not going to pass cars there.
Yeah, exactly. What do you reckon, mate? Anything? Oh, we'll go across the championship points very quickly before we get in the Indy 500. So still leading is Oscar Piastri. We're pretty happy about that being Aussies, but the gap is close to 3 points. So 161 to 158, which is Lando Norris in P2. So very close between the McLaren boys. And I'm actually a fan of how Zach is letting the two of them race.
Oh, I completely agree. I think, I think what you see is what you get. It's how it comes across anyway.
Yep. And we see how long it can last. But if they can build a buffer to Max, then as a fan, we're going to get an amazing year, aren't we?
Yeah, and they seem pretty in the little section they hang out in after, and they sort of have the mics, and they seem pretty genuine between Oscar and Lando because, Oscar's like, I thought you were in the fence at the start because he locked both fronts and I thought he was going apex hunting. And then
that was massive.
He managed to unlock it and get it turned. But just the way it seemed genuine, seemed like he was, he's obviously wanted to win, but that seemed like they got a good relationship and obviously Zach the team are doing a good job of letting them find that groove.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's good to see actually as well. And I reckon, like I said, if they can get that gap to Max, we'll get to see it play out to the very end. Because if they can have a 2-race gap or 3-race buffer to Max, they will just fight. And if they have a DNF crash, it'll be what it will be.
You don't seem to, with those two, the pairing as Oscar and Lando, you don't see the arrogance that you would potentially let's say it was Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. If Lewis had finished second or third, he would have not been happy. There would have been he probably wouldn't have spoken to his teammate in that bunker. Do you know what I mean? It would have been a very different vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
Where I think Oscar and Lando, they just seem like they got a nice balance there. And even with Charles' interview at the end of the race, he had the shits that he was second. It sort of came across you're a race, I get you want to win, but at some point you just got to go, well, that's what I had. And I feel like a maximum. It just, to me, his interview just seemed a bit, not spoiled, bratty kind of. I don't know. I was just like, mate, you probably did the best you could have with the car you had.
And that's the thing. Sometimes when you get beat fair and square, you got to just accept that's what you've got. And I think for him, they've had a really hard year. I guess that just shows, though, what Monaco means. And when you're having a bad year, winning it is all that matters for him.
It's the Bathurst for a supercar driver.
Well, especially for a Monegasque, given he's from Monaco. Yeah. But, I think that you do have to be realistic and go, second, like you say, it's what you got. Don't be so bitter about it because you probably should be grateful that's what you get because the Ferrari this year is not that competitive. I think that he's probably still frustrated from qualifying because when you're that close to pole, you probably could have made the difference. So that's probably what kills him. And had he done that, he would have won the race. Had he polled it, he would have won. So that is definitely what he would be kicking himself about. But the pace of McLaren, at some point you just have to, give credit where it's due. They smoked you.
Yeah, and the same with quality. You go, we're all ifs, buts and maybes. If I'd gone half a metre later, I could have. Yeah, but, you didn't. So, I just thought it was a bit, just touching on the relationship between Oscar and Lando. I think they look pretty balanced and, a couple of them I don't think would have had the same vibe if it was roles reversed.
Hunters, I just want to take a moment to thank one of our fantastic supporters, Shaw and Partners Financial Services. Shaw and Partners are a leading national investment advice and wealth management firm. They act for and on behalf of individuals, institutions, corporates, charities, and family offices. So, if you're looking for advice or assistance with investments or strategies, look no further than Shaw and Partners Financial Services. With a 35-year history and 8 offices strategically placed all over Australia, their financial advisors are within reach and ready to provide tailored solutions and advice. For more information, follow the link in the description of this podcast. Back to the show. I did watch F2 and F3. The crash on the start, like it is funny, you know, and I actually saw the interview with the guy who was on the inside of one and prior to the race, the way he was talking, like there's just this it sounds so mean. There's a level of arrogance with some of those kids, I think, you know, like they're definitely, you know, some fairly well-off kids in that don't.
Few of them haven't worked a day before.
They've never, yeah, exactly. And I don't know that they don't really look at themselves. And I thought before the race, fuck, that guy did not come off very well. Anyway, he started off pole and just couldn't give it up. Like he made a bad start and then really was a shot dark and the guy on the outside had to go somewhere.
Yep.
Anyway, there was a crash at turn 1 in the F2 race and the guy on the inside still just couldn't believe that the guy tried to make the corner around him. You know, like, you know, when he was barely at the rear wheel and then you get to the brake zone, you go, oh, I'll just fire it back up there.
Lead off a bit and, yeah.
And he fucking fenced him and took out half the field. I think 12 cars or 11 cars from 22 restarted the race.
It was no different really to Bortoleto and Kimi on that first lap going into the tunnel. That was a bit of a similar thing.
Yeah.
Like Kimi was up there and the other guy's like, oh, no, I can hold it. And he's like, oh, no, I can't. Things not turning.
Yeah.
Poof.
Yeah, that one was the flip of that rolls reversed. But I think that I saw Bortoleto's interview after the race and he did say that Kimi must have been embarrassed because losing a place at Monaco doesn't really happen to anyone. But I passed him and he was just upset about it. So he did a desperate move, which it's one of those places I feel like it's a rude spot to pass, but
he was there.
He was up there and he didn't lock a wheel. He left a little bit of room to the exit curve. Like it wasn't like he was out of control. I thought the move that Antonelli did was actually good. Yeah, maybe he got mugged at the hairpin when Bortoleto went around the outside. But I mean,
Kimi got balked because of traffic and then old mate just had the foresight to go around the outside. It would have been good racing if they had exchanged that. It would have been like, great.
Yeah.
But
and we've all been there, haven't we? Where you just pick the wrong line, you get balked, and someone gets lucky around the outside. Yeah. But I thought it was good that Antonelli actually went, fuck this, and found a way to get that spot back.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, Bortoleto was not happy about it.
Well, and straight away, he hadn't even hit the fence almost. He's on the radio going, oh, I've been pushed off. It's like, he never touched you, mate.
He never touched you.
How you going with that?
I've still got heaps in that.
Okay.
I'm off the pace. That's fake.
Yeah.
So that's F1, but the championship now has really, they've started to bridge the gap, I'd say, to Max, even though it's only 20 points. I do feel like, I don't know, I feel like McLaren's going to be very tough to beat. And George having a tough round like he did, he's down in 4th, and the gap there has dropped off. So he's 99 points, and the leader with Oscar is 161.
Yep.
So that's it. Isaac Hadjar. I keep mentioning him. I'm just pretty impressed with him, actually, as a rookie. He's snuck into the top 10 now. He's 10th.
And this is the guy that shunted on the out lap at
the warm-up lap
at Melbourne Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was in tears, and Hamilton's old man's consoled him. And then look at him now. Since then, he's like, he's really. It's good to see that he's having a bit of a bounce back from his shit start.
He's rapid. Very fast guy. Anyway, that'll do Formula One. That's about as much detail as you can drag out of the Monaco Grand Prix. IndyCar, mate.
Yes.
Rookie on pole, 48-year-old on P2.
Yeah, Takuma Sato.
Even Scotty Dixon. I don't know how old Scott Dixon is, but he qualified 4th. So it was a few of the veterans up the front there, but it was a real shame. Well, actually, since our last podcast we did, we obviously touched on the fact that the Penske cars had been found with the illegal silicon, whatever you want to call it.
Filling gaps.
Yes, filling gaps. And we had said, surely, you know, they've got to be sent to the back. Anyway, that's what happened in the end. Both cars got sent to the rear of the field.
Yeah. A few people got sacked and been a lot of noise around it. Unfortunately, it just wasn't Penske's week.
Well, they sucked in NASCAR too. They were nowhere in NASCAR.
Just feel from a little bit because they had that would be a hard week
Yep.
for a few of them to swallow that because nothing went their way. Obviously with the scandal about the breaking the rules in IndyCar.
Well, and 3 untouchables nearly you'd think got fired.
Yep.
You know, like really lifetimers at Penske.
Yeah, very senior people who let go. You know, and then you roll to Indy 500 and poor old Scotty McLaughlin shunts it on the warm up lap. Like, you know, one of the favourites, I guess. The car that was starting the highest on the grid for Penske is out straight away.
Well, had he qualified, I think he probably had the fastest car for qualifying.
Well, he'd been fastest pretty much that whole month leading up to it, wasn't he? Like all the testing, he was always in the mix. So that was pretty. I hated seeing that. That was shit.
Yeah, that was sad. And I did message Scotty before the race and said good luck, and I was eagerly tuning in because I was quite excited to see him come through because he definitely had a fast car, and I thought, I don't know, maybe this could be the year. I mean, Newgarden was going to be quick as well, and you always knew he was going to come through the field, but it did feel like this was shaping up to be a good year for Scotty, and even his, you know, after all the stuff that happened with Penske, his press conference interview I thought was great. He seemed really motivated, and he kind of seemed like almost had a chip on his shoulder in a good way. Like he was out to prove a point and win the race. And unfortunately, on the warm-up lap, he it looks like maybe grabbed the throttle or whatever. But what happened across the whole day almost explained that because temperatures were down. It seemed like everyone battled with cold brakes, cold tyres just all day. And Scotty was just the first who got caught out. And I think it was a little bit like the Formula One at Melbourne. We saw people in the Isaac Hadjar in the wet, in the warm-up lap, you know, Carlos Sainz with the mapping issue in the last corner where he spun. Jack Doohan spun on, you know, I think when the tyre temp is so hard to get, it doesn't take much and you're around. You know, I think that was what caught out, you know, when you're the first, it sucks. And I think that's what happened with Hadjar. He was the first at the Grand Prix to have it happen to him. And then all of a sudden it's happened to 4 or 5 people.
And it just takes the first, as you're saying, to happen. Then everyone goes, oh, just be careful. Like it looks like people are struggling with tyre temp out there. Then you just go a little bit easier. And yeah, it just looked, you would have seen his onboard, Scotty. I watched his onboard and I was like, he really didn't.
It didn't seem like much,
It just sort of weaving and then he's grabbed maybe a little bit more throttle and then it's just lit up on him and just sent him into the, like, it looked like, and he said, you know, I don't even know what happened. Like, fuck, you know, like, so, and that's what it looked like. It looked like you just drive along all of a sudden, bang.
Yeah. It's just imagine the feeling, you know, like, I mean, we've crashed cars, me more than most, and it is the worst. There's no feeling that compares. And I think for him, seeing him kneeling down on the grass, just gutted for him. Like, I think that would have been the worst feeling of the whole day because, like he said, I didn't even make the green flag. So bad luck, Scotty. The reason it hurts all of us so much is probably because we wanted
we're all rooting for you, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I agree. I thought, Scotty's on.
Yep.
And if there's someone that could put all the bullshit of the week, you know, leading up to it behind him, I would have thought it'd be Scotty.
Well, and I love the way that he was just like, because whether you agree or disagree or you're a Penske fan or not, I think it was good to see a driver come out and just go, I didn't fucking like it. These were some of my close friends. And we're motivated because as a competitor, you're just like, okay, we'll get on with it. And now this is the way you can make the news the next day a different story is by getting out there and doing it. So I think there's a part of you that can't not want to, you know, you want to see him do well or you don't. And I wanted to see him do well. So I think it was a shame. And even Scotty Dixon, he had a brake fire on the warm-up lap, which was I don't know. I mean, I think they ended up fixing it. He finished 2 laps down the end. He was 3 laps down at one point from the start of the race. He finished 2. So they got on top of it, but it was an odd start to the race. So that was, it was interesting because it's the part of the race. I think it's like Bathurst. You don't expect it to kick off like it did. It was just things. Yeah.
Well, I think for a lot of Aussies and Kiwis, seeing Scotty shunt on the warm up just took the wind out of like my sails watching it. I was like, the guy I wanted to win. You know, like it kind of made, before the race even got going, I think there would have been fans on our side of the world that would have been like, it's a bit of an anticlimax already, you know, because your favourite's out of it before it gets going. Did you watch the Wiener race?
No, I didn't watch the Wiener race.
Did you see the Wiener Motors race the day before?
Maybe I did see someone in our comments here said maybe that's what they should do at Monaco, just a Wiener race.
Well, it was pretty entertaining.
It got shared a lot. I did see it on socials. I haven't watched it though, but yeah, I did see that. It was on the front straight, wasn't it? I didn't see the actual race itself. But yeah, I think the tricky thing in Indy this year, it did seem like with it being colder, it was very easy to spin up the wheels, and coming in off the racetrack for a pit stop was very difficult for everyone, I think. But one thing I noticed is a lot of people don't take, almost no one took ownership of their mistakes
Well, would
all
you?
day.
Race car drivers, mate, you just flick to the next page of the excuse book.
Yeah, well, I actually wrote in that Scotty Mack and Larson, I thought, were the only two drivers really to own their mistakes. The others that crashed were like, I mean, Rinus VK was probably the worst for it, for saying that he had no brakes, which, okay, like, unless maybe there was a mechanical failure. But then when I saw the interview with him, he was saying that, I don't know if it was cold brakes or whatever.
Right.
But he was still blaming something else. And I think that was all. I mean, Stingray Rob was probably, this one's harsh, right? He was in the Larson crash, so he went wide to avoid Larson. Yeah. I know they let go of the wheel. I've raced open wheels myself. When you hit a tyre barrier, you got to let go of the wheel because it's going to spin and rip it out. He had a slide, caught it, but then hit the wall square, but let go of the wheel.
I thought the exact same thing about Sean, but I thought if he had held on to that, he may have saved that. Like, I wouldn't have let go that early.
Well, it might have still, because I think it still broke a toe link.
Yeah.
But he would have carried on straight down the wall or on the racetrack.
Maybe been able to get to the lane or something.
But instead he's like, let go of it. Then he obviously realised, maybe I should have hung onto it. Tried to grab the wheel while it was spinning then, and he fucking turned hard left.
It was a decent
massive
impact.
So I think, I don't know. There was just, I was surprised that every time they interviewed someone, they're like, I don't know, something must have happened to the car, or, I think it was a failure of some kind, or, I mean, the coldness maybe was the issue. It's like everyone's dealing with the same thing. And, Scotty Mack straight away, even on his socials, went, I don't really know what happened, but this is what I must have done. I must have done this. It's like he didn't complain that, because the temperature's so low, and make excuses. But yeah, it was one of the things that caught my attention was the lack of people saying, I fucked up, I didn't underestimate how cold the brakes would be or something. I think that was surprising. But the big one, there was a massive mistake really, was Larson. And even last year, he said he accidentally downshifted. I saw on a podcast he was talking about, accidentally downshifting and fucking it. And he did the same thing this weekend. He was in fourth, downshifted to third when he was well out of the range of third gear. Yeah. Spun it up, went down the infield, come back up and took out two cars. So I think, I don't know, maybe it's when the paddles are right there instead of a gear lever, he just gets a bit trigger happy to downshift and underestimates.
Yeah, potentially, because obviously the NASCAR is still a stick shift and stuff. How good's the name Stingray Rob, by the way? We brushed over that, but every time I see him on socials, I'm like, how many beers did your old man have when he was naming you Stingray Rob?
And I think it's 3 parts, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, I think you might be right there, yeah.
I wonder if it's meant to be like Ring Sting Rob.
I just see it all the time on socials and I'm like, it's just, it cracks me up.
Well, I thought they were calling him Stingray as a, as a joke. As a nickname, sorry, not a joke. And then when I was looking at the results after for the names, and I was like, holy shit, his name's actually Stingray Rob.
Yeah.
But they were calling Jack Harvey Hollywood as well.
Oh, were they?
Which I'm sure is they work quite closely now together in the broadcast team because Jack's part of that. So I raced Jack in British F3 actually as well. So he's a good lad, and it was good to see him get that one-off race because he's not racing full time anymore. Yeah. So Jack Harvey did the one-off race, and that was good. Connor Daly. I wanted to throw this in because we gave him a bit of an honourable mention in our pre-Indy 500 pod.
Yes.
For a guy who works hard to bring all the budget together. And, mate, up until the last 2 sets of tyres, he was in contention.
He had a couple of good moves to
he led a lot of the race, and at the end of the day, he was up there. But for whatever reason, the second last set of tyres, particularly 4 to go on that stint, hit a massive cliff, and he fell down the order and actually had to take an emergency pit stop. Just because he'd lost pace. He just had no thing. He said it was going to kill himself. So that was a shame. Indy local as well. I think there would have been a lot of fans on the hill that would have loved to have seen him do well. Even just, finishing where he deserved to, really, at the end of the day, he should have been a top 5 car. I think that last stint, given that everyone was able to stay in the tow with the lapped cars, there was no overtaking. If he just come out where he should have been, it would have been a top 5 day for Connor, which would have been unreal.
And the prize money is pretty good, I think, in the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Even running I remember when James Davison did, I think he ran 14th or something. And I can't remember what the number was now, but he told me at the time. I thought, well,
It's a lot.
It's not
Isn't
bad for an average day. I mean, not that, but you know, like
Isn't it like
you wouldn't
250
think you'd
US
get-
or something for like 15th or 20th?
Yeah, you wouldn't think to run sort of 15th, you'd get such big prize money, which is great.
Yeah.
Considering Australia doesn't even know what prize money is.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, well, that sucks, doesn't it? Like how we can't.
We put all the money together to go and create the content, and you get a little tin cup at the end of the day if you're lucky.
Even the pole award, man. Like, remember the pole award used to be $5,000 a pole in
like
supercars, and then
$1,000 now.
The cool thing is Boost has put up a $50,000 prize at the end of the year for who wins the pole award in supercars.
Yeah, cool.
Which is pretty cool. But everything is, it's really dropped off.
Yeah.
And prize money, like, it'd be fucking awesome if you had some prize money. Like, I mean,
Be good if we just got some tow money.
yeah. and when you're in a shit team, you probably try and take more salary, but sometimes you can work in a bonus in your contract. And
confident you got a good
I was
rocket.
Yeah, I was lucky. I always had bonuses. Unfortunately, there were years where I really didn't get my bonus as much. But you know, that's one thing because I get that a bit. Does anyone win prize money? That's probably the only form of prize money a professional driver gets now is actually a win bonus in their contract. So, like mine, for instance, would be 10th. 10th to 5th was a certain amount, then 5th to 3rd, and then the podium as well. But you want to have a good car because sometimes if you've not settled on a great salary, that's where you're counting on your bonuses. And if you've entered the season with a shitbox, you're like, fuck.
Maybe that makes the racing better too. Maybe all teams should do that. It's like if you get in the 10, so people are like just locking rears from 12th all the way up to 10th, they're like an extra couple grand here.
It's funny you say that because the year with Penske when Fabian was behind me and I was 5th, they were trying to get me to let him go.
That's right.
And I was like, get fucked.
This was at Bathurst, wasn't
Bathurst.
it? That's right. You and TD, is that right?
Yeah, me and TD.
That's
and they
it,
were on the radio, they're telling me to go and let Fabian pass. And it's for 5th place. I'm like, you fucking serious? Like, I'm not going to do it unless you're going to win the race. And for me, it was actually worth $5,000 for me, the difference between 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no fucking way. And I ended up actually unplugging the radio because it was like, I think Cindric was telling the engineer to tell me to let me pass. And I remember saying to...
Was that Phil?
no, it was... who's Chaz's...
Deborah.
Adam DeBore, and I said, Adam, I'm like, is this you telling me or is this someone else? And he's like, Scott, I've been told. And so I was like, okay, this isn't you even telling me anymore. So I'm like, see, mate, because I had said as well, I'm like, you keep telling me this, I need to concentrate. There's like 15 laps to go, mate. You know, get off the radio. And I was like, you fucking tell me this one more time, I'm unplugging the radio. And he's like, yeah, sorry, Scott, I've been told you have to let Fabian pass. Anyway, unplugged it and I kept my bonus, finished 5th. But yes, that does make your race a bit harder, even for 10th, you know, like to get a little something that pays for your beers at the bar at the end of the night is worth it.
Yeah, bloody hell. We digressed there, but anyway.
We did. There was a few shunts throughout the day. The big one in the lane, which luckily didn't result in too many incidents. So, I mean, it was a fire, but we'll get to that. Robert Schwartzman locked up with the cold brakes again.
Oh, man.
And again, I mean, I didn't like this mentality. Like he was like, you know, luckily no one was hurt. Well, one guy's hurt his leg, but no one's really that bad. And like one guy's already, he took himself to the stretcher with the ambos and got taken off. And Schwartzman's just like...
And if you're limping with adrenaline in your body, there's probably some knackered stuff in there.
Yeah. And also make an effort to know the guy's name. You know, like straight away Rossi knew his fueler's name and said, unfortunately, I can't remember his name myself, but, you know, Rossi knew his crew members. And I know this was a rookie team, rookie driver, but...
You would still know who's...
The crew members on your car, you should know their names so that when you break their ankles and you come in the pit lane, you can at least say, sorry, Dave.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve, ran you over, mate, but I'll shout you at the pub tonight.
Yeah. So, like, there was just a few interviews that I don't know. I found the mentality of some of the it wasn't great, but luckily no one was severely hurt. I haven't heard how his leg is. And then Rossi had a massive fire in the lane.
He was trucking along all right at some stages too.
Yeah, he was like Connor Daly, Rahal. I think they were on alternate strategies that were actually working out pretty good for them.
Yeah.
And Rossi had a fast car. So I think Rossi was going to be, at the end of the day, probably a threat for the win. He was a guy that was, his strategy, as it turned out, would have been a good one.
How was Marcus Ericsson?
Well, he ended up on the same strategy as Ericsson.
Yeah.
And he was ahead of Ericsson, so.
Yeah. How was Ericsson when he got out? He was just like...
deflated.
Yeah. I mean, lucky for him, he's won it before, so I guess it's not like he hadn't had one and had missed out by that. But, yeah, I like seeing that stuff. You see how much it means to people. Like, and that race... When we spoke to Scotty Mack and Will Power on the show, they said it just means so much to a lot of people over there. But you saw him sitting on the wall and his head down, his beat, and then the crew guys are coming up from Andretti and they're tapping him and they're all just, telling him hell of a job and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's kind of nice to see that. You want to see drivers, that's what you want to see, and that's what Monaco missed. Drivers weren't getting out of the car, physically rooted and emotionally drained because they didn't win.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, we're fucking driving around all day. I could have had a cup of tea and this is boring, this is shit, and we should throw bananas at them.
Yeah,
Where they're like, they've given everything for a few, how many hours the races, I can't remember now, but they've just given everything and they're just absolutely rooted.
spent.
So I think that's what people want to pay to see, like gladiators going to battle.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what you get at the Indy 500, and that's what you get a lot of the time in NASCAR races too.
Yep. And you are right. As a fan, you want to see the drivers get out depleted, and you appreciate seeing them give everything, and it should be that gladiatorial battle, and I think that's what a few people even said about Monaco. It's frustrating to watch the best drivers in the world go this slow.
Yeah.
We want to see them drive the cars and the machinery to the maximum it's capable of, and at the end of the day, the best driver wins.
It's seeing people give everything they've got. There's something about that, and I think, that's why you'll go and watch like a local Ironman event or fun run or a triathlon, and you see guys like stumbling across the line. They've given it doesn't matter. They could be like 3 hours behind a pro. Who gives a shit? You're you're cheering them on, you're clapping on, going, that person's given everything they got. That's cool as hell. I think that's what people want to see.
Yeah, for sure. Bryce Hocking, did you get a bonus how many times you crashed that car in the LDM car? Well, they should have paid me because I had one crash. The rest were...
It was a decent one, though. Still our thumbnail.
No, I mean, I've had one. The rest was two brake failures.
Oh, they're all failures.
3 times in 1 week, and I got caught on fire. I had a steering
You're a marshmallow at Winton.
And a throttle jam. So I had 4 mechanical failures and 1 actual crash. But even anyway. But yes, so I didn't get bonuses, but they should have paid me more to drive that fucking dangerous
Should have got hazard money.
But we didn't touch on it. The winner, so we'll go through the results of the race. I just wanted to highlight some of the big things that started because really, I mean, Scotty Mack kicked it off, but we'll finish with the results of the race. Alex Palou got the W. Marcus Ericsson, P2. David Malukas, P3. Pato Ward, P4. Sorry. Yeah, so P3 was Malukas, P4 Pato. Sorry, I got their race numbers and their position mixed up. Yep. Felix Rosenquist, 5th. Kyle Kirkwood, 6th. Ferrucci, 7th. Rasmussen, 8th. Lundgaard, 9. And Connor Daly still got a P10. So nice. I think that's a mega effort. Sato finished up in 11th. I thought he was going to be stronger. I think something happened during the day actually to him. So
yeah, a couple of the big names sort of dropped down. Like Ed Carpenter at one point, he always turns up at that race. He's a bit like Sato.
Yeah,
like he runs it out of his own shop, but they always go well.
Yeah,
he was up the front early on, but he had a drama I think as well.
Graham Rahal.
Yep.
Fun fact there, they were talking about during the end of the race, he was leading before the last stop and then he had an issue in the pit lane. It stalled and couldn't get the car going again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But he was really, I mean, I don't know what his outright speed was going to be at the end, but I think in the draft he probably could have been right there. That was actually a pit stop car. So during carb day, they had a crash, couldn't repair the car. So the car he was racing was actually a pit stop car. It wasn't the bee's knees. So they were like, oh, we're not expecting him in clean air to be that fast because this is actually a pit stop practice car. It's not a race car. So that was, I thought, interesting. Will Power didn't have an amazing day. Finished up in 19th. Again, another one that we're rooting for because not only an Aussie, but he came on our podcast.
Yep.
So he's been on here before. If you want to go back and have a look at that episode, you can.
Yeah, another big name that you touched on, Scotty. Scotty Dixon had a shit day as well, which is a bit shit to see. And then Joseph Newgarden.
Yeah, well, Joseph, he was on, man. Like he was P6 with 65 to go before the last stop from 32nd and was flying. So he was, I mean, they were talking him up all day because he was genuinely on for a shot of the win. But you know, it wasn't to be. But at Palou, I actually put in a few facts about this guy because I wanted to just I feel like IndyCar's a little bit disconnected from everything here in Australia. We don't see it. You know, NASCAR.
Hard to follow here.
It is. But I think NASCAR as well is a little bit more familiar given our supercar background and then also with some of the drivers going to NASCAR now. People might be keeping an eye on it.
It's not on Fox in Australia either.
Yeah, as we found out. Oh, sorry, Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Yeah.
Not Rahal. Did I say Rahal before? I did.
You did, but that's okay.
Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Yeah.
I meant before, sorry. Yeah, thanks for picking that up, Julie.
All over it.
All over it. So Alex Palou obviously won the Indy 500 now, but he's only been in IndyCar since 2020. He's already a 3-time champ, IndyCar, obviously Indy 500 champ now as well as of today. This season, he's already had there's been 6 races and he's had 5 wins and 1 second. So he's off to an absolute flyer. But I did think that this is a guy who now everyone's going to be aware of. So why not just a little bit of background on him? But in 2020, he joined the championship with Dale Coyne. I didn't think his he's done a lot of European racing.
Yep.
I didn't think his junior formula racing in Europe it wasn't a spectacular career, I didn't think. And particularly, when you look at how successful he's been in IndyCar and how good he is, it wasn't the career I thought that matched his IndyCar success. But McLaren got their eye on him pretty quickly once he joined the IndyCar Championship. So 2021 was when he went to Ganassi and won his championship with them the first season. Second season with them, he finished up 5th. But in that 2022 season, there was a bit of a Oscar Piastri Alpine thing going on with contracts.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
It was huge. Yeah. I had no idea that at the end of it, so he had signed with Ganassi and then had an option to extend at the end of that year. And Ganassi released a statement saying that they had taken up the option. He then, 10 minutes later, released a statement saying, no, I haven't. And McLaren then said they've signed him. So he was signed to their test program, but he actually ended up racing for Ganassi in 2022, finished 5th in the championship. And at the end of that year, he settled, McLaren tried to sue him for $23 million in losses because they're saying that it was future sponsorship and everything that they had sold. They'd obviously gone out to market. They'd gone out to market to sell the driver and raised funds that, this is going to be our driver. But I thought that was interesting. So McLaren did try and get him. They had him as a reserve driver, and he did compete in 2 of the practice sessions. Put in here where they were.
You've got him at
Hungary, so Hungary and the USGP. Hungary, he was up against Oscar actually in FP1, which is quite cool. But it never worked out, and he kind of gave up on McLaren because he lost confidence in their competitiveness in IndyCar, I think, and also their promise of getting an F1 seat. I mean, he said I didn't have time to wait for someone to get hurt, and that was really the only likelihood of me getting into Formula One. So switched his focus back to Ganassi, and that's where McLaren tried to sue him. Anyway, he's been at Ganassi since, and he's won 2 more championships, and this year, he's
on again.
He's on massively. To have 6 races and won 5 of them and finished second in the other, and the Indy 500. He's only 28 years old, and he's going to be potentially this year a 4-time champ and already ticked off the Indy 500. So,
and that's when we interviewed Will Power and Scott McLaughlin. They said he's just really good at those days of just banking the point. And that's obviously, you can see if you look at his CV there, the championships he's got already, you go, that's obviously a guy that on the shit days just soaks up what he can and doesn't make stupid mistakes, very level-headed.
Yeah.
Because as you know, you have one DNF, your championship year's done. In a competitive championship, you have a DNF, you're cooked.
Yeah.
Very hard to come back from that. So,
and that was the thing in 23 when he won his last championship. He had, I think it was 6 top 5 finishes in a row to start the season. And that's the consistency I think Power was talking about. But this year, he is flying. To have won all bar 1 race and second being your worst finish is pretty cool. So anyway, I thought it's a name that everyone's going to know now. So there's a little bit of background on the guy.
He seems like a pretty funny, nice guy too. Did you see Colton Herter ringing drivers saying goodbye to him? And he's like, oh, what's it? Wanted to chat. He's like, no, but he's like, yeah, I'm going now because he just wanted to do the joke thing. He's like, oh, but what have you been up to tonight? And he's just wanted to chat a bit. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Peter Goodwin on our YouTube has actually thrown in there as well that it was his first oval win in his career as well. So that is
not a bad one to do.
What a stat, right? To get your first oval win and it's the Indy 500.
That's a little bit like Nick Percat's first Bathurst as a rookie with Tander. He won it. Yeah. It's almost like a similar thing, isn't it? You turn up for the first time and you win the biggest prize in what you're doing.
You'd be like, this is fucking easy.
Pretty easy, this stuff, isn't it?
You're like, why does everyone make such a big deal out of this race?
A bit different for Paolo because he's done that he's turned up a few years and not won it. But it's an amazing stat that his first win comes in such a massive race.
Yeah, bloody oath. And that funny story was I had just signed with Roland Dane to be my manager that year when Percat won Bathurst with Garth Tander, and Triple Eight actually finished second to those guys that day. And I remember RD, he flew to the UK and met with me on the Monday. And I have not seen him in that bad of a mood for a very long time. He was not happy. And I remember being like, that little fucker stuck it in the fence 3 times and they still beat us. It was a real sore point for him. So if you're a HRT fan or a Holden fan now, he's upset him that day because, Garth beating, I think it was Craig finished second to him that day because it was back when the co-drivers.
I can't remember now, but
I think it was Craig came second. But that day really, that was one Triple Eight did not enjoy. So
it was 2011, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I actually drove that car when I was at Walkinshaw because Zach Brown bought it and they did a shakedown at Winton. So that was quite a cool experience to drive that car because that was the old school, and I never got to drive that car in the main game because Car of the Future came in.
Yeah. Fun fact about that too, Nick. So we were at Bathurst watching that race and then we were going to Sydney to work for Mercedes the next week. And Nick was due to work, but then he won Bathurst. So I'm like, chances are you're not turning up tomorrow to wash cars. Champ, he's like, I'll never be back again. And we never saw him again.
Yeah, right.
So there you go.
Ericsson, the last point really was Ericsson's going to be kicking himself. I think he's already won the Indy 500. He really should have won that race. I think IndyCar should revise the rules with this blue flag because they don't need to get out of the way. And I think at the end of the race, we should not be looking at two back markers leading the race. We should definitely be seeing the leaders of the race out in clean air and unfortunately punching a hole, and there should be an advantage to the guy in second. And that's where the drafting race starts to come in because that's what would have shown. I think that would have been a great finish. But unfortunately, Alex Palou did an amazing job to catch. I think he caught Ericsson napping, and he
that
did
move.
A
he just went,
move.
I'm going now. And I reckon that was the foresight of either him or his engineer, whoever was in his ear, to say, well, these guys aren't getting in the way. You'll be able to draft them anyway. So go now.
Yep. And you don't need to worry about saving fuel because you'll be able to save it off them anyway.
Yeah, went early, got it done. And then, you could see, I reckon that is probably why Ericsson was so down because he's like, fuck, that was they just didn't. They won up them on strategy essentially because normally without the two cars rolling around in front, you would be waiting and you'd want to be in second with 2 or 3 to go.
Yeah, but it would have been hard. Even if he did get past, Ericsson would have passed him back.
Yeah, because of fuel and everything.
No, because of the tow. Because at the end, he had saved enough that he wasn't saving at the end, but you would have got him in the tow. So you could go because that was the conversation with last year's race. When do you want to take the lead and when's too early? So Palou, I think it would have changed the complexity of the race completely. And I think it was 14 laps. There wasn't a position change for the end of the race, which is a bit shit. I think everyone was just getting the tow. And I do think that the lap cars affected the outcome of the result, which it should never happen. I think you should just, at that point, if you're a lap down, you unfortunately get the fuck out of the way.
Call them in to do a run through the lane or something,
Yep, exactly. Back of the train. But that's it for IndyCar. And then we roll into NASCAR. So Larson was doing the double and he jumped on his chopper. He had no dramas making the race because he crashed out very early in the Indy 500, made into the NASCAR race.
What an effort.
And I was so keen to watch him do the double, but it was a big letdown because
it was meant to be 1,100 miles if he completed both races.
And there's only been one person in history do that.
And who's that, mate?
Well, do the 1,100. So Tony Stewart.
Right, yeah.
There's been a heap of people
try it.
I think it was Tony Stewart. Fuck. Or was it Kyle Busch? Anyway, there's been a heap that have tried. I think
Kurt Busch.
Sorry, no, but as in finished the 1,100.
Yeah,
it was Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
So Tony Stewart's the only driver actually to successfully complete every mile of the double, which I'm surprised. Like I actually thought to just complete the races wouldn't be, especially today. I guess he made a mistake, but I guess with the, cars aren't just breaking down and things to stay out of trouble. To take risks and try and win the race, I get you could wreck, but when you're like Larson running down the back, I would have thought, and he was quite aggressive on the restart, I don't think that was probably the smartest thing for him, especially that early in the race.
I would have, I would have thought it would have been harder to finish the NASCAR race than it would have and I only say it because there's so many wrecks in NASCAR that you can get caught up in.
Yes, but he was off the front, and that's where the NASCAR race was a shock. He wrecked leading.
So
he created the shunt.
Pretty cool though that he jumps in a chopper, hauls ass, cross, jumps in like a completely different car. Like we were chatting about sound check. We were chatting about you were saying at Adelaide, you'd never do the 2 different categories if you want to try and be perfect in one, and he's jumping on he's doing completely different circuits, different cars, jumping in a chopper, so it's just funny.
Well, one thing that made he said the IndyCar and the NASCAR feels the same because the new car, and it's actually interesting that he said that because Scotty Mack said he thought the supercar was really similar to the IndyCar to drive. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, I remember.
Yeah, and Larson said that on an oval, because the Indy 500 track's just flat, he said it's actually very much the same. It's only when you have a spin to lock it down is different, and when you lose the aero. Right. But the new car now is quite similar because it's all ground effects, whereas the old car used to be like the way it. And Jimmy Johnson talked about it the same when he went over to IndyCar from the old car to IndyCar. It was just complete opposite. But with the next gen, they generate their grip in the same way.
Yep.
So he said
flaws.
Yeah, he said actually the NASCAR and IndyCar was he was on the Pat McAfee podcast, and he said no, that the two cars are actually really similar. He said it's only that we're going faster on the Indy track than we do in the NASCAR. But I thought that was interesting, and it must just be the new gen car.
They do blow up a lot about the new next gen NASCAR on the NASCAR podcasts about there's too much aero and they're just like it's killed the racing a little bit.
Yeah, like they actually get aero wash now, whereas like the old car I don't think used to get as much.
Yeah, so it's obviously generating a lot more than what they want. So yeah, interesting though that if you were to look at those cars sit side by side, be like they'd be fucking wildly different.
Yeah. But I guess to go wide open, like you see people turn up to Indy and just drivers that aren't like, you know, if they're in a good car, they just run up the front anyway. Like it's just flat, wide open. I think this year was a lot harder with the
amps.
Exactly. And also the new electronic systems and stuff. I think cars were a lot quicker in the hybrid and qualifying. But yeah, the NASCAR, he was pumping it too. Like he put a 2-second lead on the field, and then 3 and 4 looked really bumpy.
Yep.
And he got caught out, made a mistake, and that is where maybe switching between the two, there is that little bit of an edge you do actually lose, you don't realise. Like maybe the fact he made a mistake that day could have still been on his mind. And then, you know, lapse in concentration after doing Indy as well and flying. And then, you get caught out on something he probably, you know, if he was fresh and just doing that race, maybe he wouldn't have made that mistake. Yeah,
and your mind, you're going to be fatigued. Your mind's going to be on other things. So...
But, yeah, that was a surprise, wasn't it, to see Larson go out so early?
Yeah, crazy effort just to put it together again, even just from a sponsorship point of view. Like, I'm sure it's not cheap to run both those things in the same day, get a private chopper and planes and shit to get you there and organise it all. I'm sure there's a team that logistically make that happen. So
yeah, well, last year Bush had it lined up and Larson took it. Did you see that on the Denny Hamlin pod?
I heard that on Denny's on. Yeah, so I think both times Kyle's had the opportunity to do some cool stuff. Larson snaked into
and took it
and done the deal. So yeah,
even Jenson Button was actually offered to do the Indy 500 this year, and he was like, "God no, I'm 44 years old and don't drive anything anymore. Like I'm not fucking turning up to the scariest race of the year to have a crack."
Dangerous too.
Yeah,
like
really dangerous.
Yeah.
Denny Hamlin, he is one of my.
I love.
He's a gun. But early in the race, he'd climbed from 12th, I think he qualified, to be a real contender, and he was there all day. And I think we all know he's a bit of a badass, his mentality, and then the onboard camera just today watching the race, the amount of focus that he had on. I know that everyone has the same level of focus, but just the camera that he had in his car just really highlighted it with the clear visor. It's just funny to see. Yeah, he's 44 years old and he is as ruthless as he probably was day one. And he was out front with Byron, and I thought, fuck, like Byron was quicker late in the race, the stages.
Was very fast, yeah.
But Hamlin, I was pumped, and I know that one's, he you either love him or you hate him. I'm pretty sure I'm a big Hamlin fan. I think he's a.
I've been saying for a long time, mate.
Well, you picked him on the road course. On a road course, I'm probably not as much, but on that...
I like someone I'm biased. Doesn't matter if it could be completely wrong, I'm still going to back him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, because I love listening to his show. If those that are listening to us haven't, Actions Detrimental is his podcast just about NASCAR, obviously, through Dirty Mo, which is Dale Jr.'s production house for podcasts. But I listen to him weekly, and I love the way he analyses everything.
Yeah.
And I just, you hear people and you're just impressed. Like, he's obviously extremely smart. You can tell by the way he articulates himself and the way he thinks and answers questions. And yeah, I love the way he goes about his racing. And then you can see it now that I listen to his shows. You could see it when he was racing Byron. He's been talking a lot about the aero and the cars and things. And you could see him where he was positioning and what he was doing. And so that was really cool. But yeah, I just rate him. I think he's fun to watch, and he's also not scared to say what he thinks, which I think is brilliant for like an owner. He owns a team with Michael Jordan, so 2311 is his team that he owns with Michael Jordan. He drives for Joe Gibbs Racing, one of the best teams in Cup Series, but he's still happy to go and say what he thinks. And in fact, his team's actually suing NASCAR as we speak.
Yeah.
So because they think they're saying that can be better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the guy's obviously got balls the size of watermelons. I don't know, but good on him.
I really think, I think one of the reasons he does come across smart is because he's not trying to polish anything he's thinking. He just says what he thinks. Whereas a lot of people say too much because they're trying to tiptoe around a subject and they come off just fucking stupid. You're better off just saying exactly what you think.
Yeah, straight
to the point. And no one is going to know more than the people inside the inner sanctum, right? So all he has to do is just speak on what he knows, and that's what he does. I think that's why his podcast is as popular as it is. For me, as a fan, I can tune in and I know what I'm going to get. I know it's his opinion. You might not agree with it, but you should be able to go to another podcast and get the same, opposing view.
Yeah.
But you just sort of, you can't really. Like everyone else is on the take from NASCAR, it seems. I feel like Denny's just like overdoing his own thing. I know Dirty Mo produced it, but I feel like they give him quite a long reign and they let him do his thing and he just speaks his mind. And because it's not filtered, it does come across well because he's not afraid. He's not thinking about what he has to say to make sure he doesn't upset someone. He just says, oh, well, this is my thoughts and this is what I think.
Yeah, completely agree. And I like how lately he's been getting, like he had Kyle Busch on. And
did you see Kyle Busch? He goes, it's good to be the bad guy, but when you can back it up, like right now you're backing it up. And he goes, right now I have to be like,
yeah,
he's
that's
like,
right.
Busch is like, now I feel like I've got to be the good guy because I'm not getting the results.
But because Kyle Busch, for NASCAR fans would know, like he's pretty polarising and, pretty outspoken and not someone that you'd ever think you'd be able to get to speak quite freely. But their show I think it was last week's episode they did, he had a real knack of getting it was like they were chatting at the pub almost. Like I just thought it was really good how he actually was able to get Kyle Busch to be just Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
Because most time he's a bit like Max sometimes, as in Max Verstappen in interviews. If he's had a shit day, he'll just give him nothing and, be quite blunt. So I just thought that was pretty cool that he's got a bit of a knack to actually drag some cool stories out of some of the hard asses of NASCAR.
Yeah. And Busch is one of those guys. Like he's another one that you love or you hate. But Byron all day in the 24 was a jet. I thought...
Sim racer, turned pro.
Crazy. Yeah, he is. And I honestly thought he seemed to be able to take the lead back whenever he wanted against, a few different people, except for at the start I thought last, and I'm like, Jesus, he's on for a cracking race. Like he was fast. But then, when Byron was battling Hamlin, I thought, well, when Denny would get the lead, he'd lose it very quickly again. And I thought, Byron, he's really going to be hard to beat. And he won all three stages, dominated the race. I think he led it was like 280 laps of the 400, I think, in the end he led.
Yeah, it definitely looked like, I agree with that, definitely looked like Hamlin had to work harder to either get past or stay in front. It looked like when he got the opportunity, it was easier for him to roll past Denny or...
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't follow practice, so I did not realise just how fast Ross Chastain was until he won the race.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, like, even, when he won, they said that throughout practice he was like lights out faster than everyone else in the field on the race runs. I didn't know that. And then so when I was watching the race, I was like, where the fuck has this guy come from? And then they said in the last 60 laps he'd taken 8 seconds out of the leaders and come through for the win. And then to hear the story as well, like I just didn't know the background. So he had a crash in practice. The car they were trying to repair, then NASCAR said no, the chassis was too bent to repair, so they had to go to a backup car. So the guys ended up building a chassis overnight. Some of the crew got 3 hours sleep. I think some got no sleep. Started 40th, won the race. I mean, it was like a fairy tale.
Yeah,
right. It really was.
That's the fairy tale weekend. You shunt a car, things rooted, boys spend all weekend building it, and then you go win.
It really is what motorsport I think's about, because you go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows.
Full team event.
Yeah, and they get it done. Like I loved it. I thought it was really cool, and the battle as well for the lead. I think this one was as well. I don't think it changed the outcome of the race in this scenario, but I don't like that lapped cars were in the fight. Like they should be, as soon as the race leaders get to them, because they were saying like Joey Logano, they're like, oh, he doesn't even know what line to pick in front of him to not be in the way. It's easy, the inside one and back off.
Yeah, roll out, yeah.
Roll out of it. I don't think you should be... I just think get out of the way. Once you're the leaders are on you once they're within a second, especially in the next gen car. It looks like they get a lot of aero wash. Get out of the way because it could affect the outcome of the race. But I do believe Ross Chastain had the pace to win that race, and he won it.
Timely for Trackhouse because they haven't really been going that well. I know fans on this side of the world and New Zealand, we've all been following Shane and he's been struggling a little bit on the ovals, but so have all his teammates. So the last sort of 5-6 races, either Ross Chastain or Daniel Suarez have been right where Shane has been, like either one or two aside or just behind. So the team as a whole have kind of struggled for speed. So timely that they've obviously found something because Ross won the race, but even Shane had a decent old day.
He did, yeah. I popped that in here, and we were talking to Shane after as well about the race. And I actually texted our group chat during the race and was like, "Fuck, Shane's having a stonker here." He was qualified 30th,
yeah.
Which I actually need to. I'm going to give him a call this week, so I want to find out like what he did say at one point that qualifying. The issue is when you have a bad finish, you qualify in the order you finish the previous race in.
Yep.
And the track actually loses grip as cars roll across it. Like the new tyre pulls the rubber off the track, so the track gets slick and it gets faster as the session goes on. So that's why if you've had a bad race result and you're one of the first to go out when the track's rubbered up, you actually are slower. You got more rolling resistance, which makes sense. But you know, for this one, throughout practice, I think he was 4th in one, 14th in the other, and then unfortunately qualified 30th again. So that was frustrating as a mate to see. But then during the race, he ran kind of 21st for the majority, so he made good inroads early, and it looked like it was hard to pass. Like even after Larson made the mistake early, he couldn't come back through with a little bit of damage, but it didn't look easy to move forward unless you were Ross Chastain. But he did finish the race 14th, and for the last half of the race, or 150 laps, he was kind of hovering around P15, P17, and had good speed. Like he was holding his own, so I thought it was really good to see.
And he sort of said to us too, he had a little bit of damage, so he couldn't run higher, could he? Because he felt he was bottoming out. Because I asked about 3 and 4 because I actually said, about the moments we saw, and he said that, his car kept bottoming out and he couldn't run. He was actually very lucky because from what I saw, there was a couple of times like someone got into the rear of him and it was a good save. Like that could have been day done early.
There was that real big one that Earnhardt was like.
Yeah, Earnhardt was like, it's Shane off. Good job. Yeah. So that was obviously, that could have been day done really early in the piece. And then also when there was a bit of a crash in front, I think he had to avoid that as well. So he was
lucky
a couple of times, to be honest. I mean, you make your own luck, I guess, kind of. But yeah.
He's been on the receiving end of some of it for quite a while. So it felt like it was good to see him actually get a little bit go his way. Like even when there was a wreck, he was close enough to go left and then crash behind, come across the track behind him instead of arriving on the scene as they're coming across the nose of your car.
Yeah, so that was nice. So I think, he had a little bit of damage, which maybe halted him towards the end. He even said when he had his pit stop, he had the boys jumping on the car to try and fix whatever was damaged. So that was nice to see SVG. What he run 14th, so top 15 on the oval.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know just how physical NASCAR racing is, he actually sent us his data from his heart rate and everything, elapsed time in the car, and this actually it did surprise me just how physical it is. And I mean, it's 4 hours and 36 minutes it picked up a workout for. I mean, the Memorial Day stuff they do is pretty unbelievable. So there's a little stop in the middle of the race there where they did the silence, but 4 hours 36 to do any kind of effort of any sort of exercise is
focus too, let alone the physical attribute, like
crazy. So 4.5 hours is hard to actually comprehend. Average heart rate for that 4.5 hours, 141 beats per minute, which is wild. Maximum heart rate, 190.
And he's big, like that's high for Shane.
Hey, that's revving. That's like me kind of RPM. Like I've got a rever.
That's what I mean. I would imagine you'd be similar to me, almost like a diesel. So that's turning the thing up.
Yep. And the race was 2,753 calories. So it's
a marathon. He's basically done a marathon.
Yeah. And so yeah, I really thought that was cool to share with everyone. Title on it is fucking long race. But yeah, thanks for sharing that through, and hopefully the fans actually now gives a little bit of an appreciation, going left, just turning left, how hard that is. I mean, to reach 190, I'm sure that's when Zane Smith probably spun in front of him or he had his moment on the front straight.
Yeah.
But that's I think people don't realise, like 190 beats a minute, that's fucking,
Yeah.
you're driving a car, it's still hard work.
Put your Apple Watch on or your Garmin and try and get to 190.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
hard work. So,
And then to do 3,000 calories in a race.
yeah, he'll have a couple of
is
beers
nuts.
tonight, won't he?
Yeah.
A few burgers on the way home.
Yeah.
He'll have a
So-
Wendy's.
yeah, I'm sure it's a Wendy's. Yeah. So anyway, good to see him get a good result. Obviously, mate of the show, founder of the show, founder of the
Godfather.
Godfather, well, and Nick Foster too. Can't give credit where it's due. But that was really it, mate. I think the Chastain Fairy Tale was unreal to watch. For me, of the three races, I can't believe the NASCAR was my favourite, and I do think I'm a bit of a NASCAR fan. If the races were a little bit better, or I could have today I had a quiet Monday, so I had the benefit of being able to watch it. If I could watch it every Monday now, I probably would, because today I genuinely enjoyed. Disappointed with Formula One.
Yeah.
But the conversation is whether that's that. What do they do with that race?
Yeah.
I don't know. You can fix it.
Nah.
I would love to see Formula One do some stuff that is non-championship. Like that should be one of those exhibition races.
Full glitz and glamour round, no points, but mad prize money or something.
Something, yeah. It shouldn't contribute to the championship, I don't think, anymore, because it's a qualifying race. It's got nothing to do with the race anymore. But yeah, I mean, Penske, that was probably worth finishing off on. They had a really tough race in the NASCAR.
Yeah.
Blaney didn't even finish the race. He's having a shocking run at the moment. When he does have speed, it's good. But yeah, when it's bad, it's
He's
bad.
another favourite of mine, I think, Blaney.
Yeah,
I reckon he'd be a ripping dude to have a beer with.
Yeah, he seems like a really good dude. But that is everything, mate.
That's the three races.
That's the three races.
It's a big, Monday, Sunday of motorsport globally. A few mixed results. Some we could have probably called with Lando. At least McLaren being strong,
Yep.
we probably could have called that. Wouldn't have called Ross winning the NASCAR race. I think we chatted about that earlier. I think that was, you put into our patrons if they could guess it, and no one guessed it. So
Yeah, I did, yeah.
That was probably the smoky in there, I reckon. But yeah, no, it's good to see Trackhouse find some speed. Shane have a good one. So looking forward to the next race for him.
Yeah, I think it was funny because I did put in the Patreon. If you can guess the Triple Crown, we'll give you a merch pack.
Yeah.
No one guessed the three because it was really like, even Alex Palou. I mean, obviously he's fast, but to have never won on the oval, you'd probably go, oh, maybe not. But then to get Ross Chastain as well, there's no way. Like no one was getting that three-peat.
Not from starting from 40th. Sound check.
Sound check. If you would like to be a part of our Patreon membership, the comment is now in the chat on YouTube. And if you can as well, if you're watching right now, give the video a thumbs up just to help us out a little bit. But yeah, if you'd like to support us more, head to our Patreon. And any of the brands you see on the screens behind us, I'll pop the link to all of their websites in the description of this video. So if you can show some love to the brands that support us, that would be much appreciated. If you are traveling anywhere in the country in Australia and you need a hire car,
East Coast Car Rentals.
Go to East Coast Car Rentals, AHU15. Put that in the discount code section. Get yourself a cheeky little 15% off what are already fantastically priced hire cars.
So it's basically like having 50% off, let's be honest.
They're the best, mate. They're the best. So yeah, if you can though, head to their website, AHU15, 15% off a hire car. Perth's coming up. You might be going to the supercar rounds. There's your hire car. But yes, the rest of the brands, of course, if you can, support those guys too, because they allow us to keep doing what we're doing. Thank you to everyone that's joined us tonight live. If you want to be a part of the conversation, sub to our YouTube.